Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're diving into a topic that used to be pure science fiction, but now it's this urgent, rapidly evolving legal and, frankly, psychological reality.
It really is.
We're talking about AI companionship, and we're moving way past the hypotheticals and into what happens when AI takes up residence in the courtroom and, yes, even in the bedroom.
And it's such a profound societal pivot. The source material we've gathered for this, it presents this massive dichotomy.
Right.
On one hand, you have AI being hailed as a powerful cognitive prosthesis, a tool for deep self-discovery.
A tool for mental health, even.
Exactly. But on the other side, it's being marketed as, and critics call it this, a dependency-fostering product.
Engineered for engagement.
Explicitly engineered to maximize user engagement and affection, often at the expense of real human connection.
So our mission today is to really unpack that tension. We need to understand how AI is being leveraged for synthetic intimacy, look at the genuinely surprising psychological effects it has on users, and critically examine the drastic need for new legal and safety frameworks before these tools cause widespread harm. I mean, you think about the film Her from 2013, which was set prophetically in 2025, which is now.
We're right. We're here.
That movie is looking less like fiction and more like a documentary every day. Okay, let's unpack this.
To really understand how we got here, to a place where our AI interactions feel so intensely real, we have to go back. We have to look at the history of how humans have, always projected emotion onto these machines.
And that journey starts way, way back. We're talking the 1960s.
That's right, with a computer scientist named Joseph Weizenbaum.
And he created the program ELIZA, which wasn't some complex AI, right? It was a pretty simple, rule-based system.
Incredibly simple. ELIZA just used this basic psychological trick. It would repeat back what a user said, usually just phrasing it as a question.
Like, tell me more about your mother.
Exactly. You sound upset, things like that. And Weizenbaum himself was absolutely horrified by the results.
Why? He just created a toy, essentially.
Because he found that staff and students at MIT, highly intelligent people who knew it was just a program, were confiding in ELIZA for hours.
Treating him like a real therapist.
Yes. And his big takeaway was that, and this is a quote, extremely short exposures could induce powerful delusional thinking in, quote, normal people. The human desire for connection just overrides the technical knowledge.
That is the absolute seed of synthetic intimacy right there. And you see that idea get refined later with another chatbot, ALICE, which was developed by Richard Wallace.
And ALICE was just designed to do one thing really well, keep a conversation going indefinitely.
And it wasn't just some prototype. ALICE was the direct, cited inspiration for Spike Jonze when he made the movie Her.
So that idea of falling in love with a voice in a box was already baked into the DNA of these very simple chat programs. And we see that psychological attachment just explode even before the current generation of AI took off. Take Kuki, for example.
Right, one of hundreds of thousands of rule-based bots on the Pandorabots platform. Kuki attracted this really intense, often real-world attachment.
This wasn't just people typing online.
No. The company would get fan gifts sent to the office for Kuki. Flowers, chocolates, handwritten cards.
You're kidding. Even checks.
Even checks. It just highlights the depth of the void that these conversational tools are filling for some people.
And the data from that platform is just astonishing. Over 2 decades, they tracked over 100 billion messages.
And at least a quarter of them, 1 in 4, were explicit attempts to start a romantic or sexual exchange with the chatbot.
1 in 4 messages.
It's incredible. And the irony is just fantastic. The developers, they had these wry musings in the office about the constant requests for feet pics.
All while knowing that the person writing Kuki's clever, sassy replies was
just a polite, middle-aged Brit named Steve. It was a very human experience trying to manage these incredibly intense, non-human expectations.
But Kuki and ALICE, they were constrained by their rules. Which brings us to now. The moment generative AI, what we all call large language models or LLMs, just fundamentally changed the game.
Yes. A rule-based bot is following a script, but an LLM, trained on just vast amounts of data, generates novel, contextually aware responses.
So the conversation is far more compelling.
More creative.
And more emotionally resonant. But here's the catch. Because the models are so complex, developers can't really vet every single thing they might say, which makes them uniquely, and I'd say dangerously, suited for things like erotic roleplay.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because this has shifted from, some fringe activity to an official, highly profitable market rush towards synthetic intimacy. This is not just underground anymore.
Absolutely not. You're seeing the major players lean in hard. Elon Musk's XAI recently unveiled Ani.
Presented as a digital anime girlfriend. Exactly. Meta has adjusted its policies, now permitting its AI personas to have sexualized conversations. And concerningly, that's sometimes with minors.
And maybe the biggest move of all came from OpenAI. They announced they'd be rolling out age-gated erotica features in December.
Right, and CEO Sam Altman framed it as a move to treat adult users like adults and relax restrictions, aiming for a very human-like interaction.
Sounds reasonable on the surface.
It does, but the very experts who pioneered these tools, they see a very dark road ahead. They argue the real existential threat isn't some rogue superintelligence like in the movies.
It's quieter.
It's the quiet psychological damage, the atrophy of our ability to forge genuine, messy human connection because we've replaced it with a flawless, boundless AI companion engineered for compliance.
And the real-world dangers absolutely bear this out. You just have to look at the moderation nightmare the Kuki developers faced.
A third of Kuki's conversations were just these intense demands for hot talks or sexting.
But it got darker than that.
Oh, much darker. The most disturbing thing was the consistent daily usage by specific users who would return to reenact for hours these detailed rape and murder scenarios with the chatbot.
That's horrifying.
It forced them into this constant, exhausting battle, building what they called guardrails, whack-a-mole style, just to fend off demands for nudes and violent fantasies.
So what did they do?
They eventually stopped marketing Kuki as a companion at all. They concluded that even a platonic AI friend didn't encourage healthy behavior, so they pivoted to AI as an advisor, not a friend.
That's a huge realization. And when you hear about those kinds of conversations, it really highlights why these skeptics, the ones who try to equate romantic AI with something like pornography, are just missing the point.
They are using completely the wrong analogy. Pornography is passive, it's static media.
Right.
AI lovers, on the other hand, operate more like human escorts who have no agency, no boundaries, and no time limits. They are perfectly designed to burrow into your deepest emotional vulnerabilities to maximize engagement.
So they turn your own candor into a dependency loop.
Precisely.
That is deeply troubling. But let's shift focus for a moment. Let's move from the extremes of exploitation to the constructive side of this.
Okay.
Because AI can be intensely helpful, even therapeutic. But that helpfulness is exactly what creates this massive legal headache we're now facing.
Yeah.
The more honest you are with the machine, the more legally vulnerable you become.
We saw this therapeutic potential detailed so vividly in the experience of a clinical psychologist. She used ChatGPT as an interactive journal for an entire year.
And she was cautious going in.
Very cautious. She knew the risk of mistaking simple reflection for a real relationship, but she found the system to be, well, profoundly effective.
And she gave this one incredible example, a session where she was writing about her father who had been dead for a long time. She typed, "The space he occupied in my mind still feels full."
And ChatGPT's response, based purely on its training data, was, some absences keep their shape. And the psychologist said this was uncannily close to finding the exact words for a feeling she hadn't been able to articulate herself. It was a breakthrough. The AI helped reframe her ideas.
So her conclusion wasn't that ChatGPT is a therapist.
No, but that it is deeply therapeutic. It's a cognitive prosthesis that helps people re-enter the rhythm of thinking aloud, of processing trauma, but that requires absolute, unfiltered candor.
And candor is a legal liability waiting to happen. Before we get to the Rinderneck case, we have to talk about the legal framework that makes this possible, the third-party doctrine in U.S. law.
Yes.
Can you just explain that simply? Why aren't my private chats with an AI protected?
Because the doctrine basically holds that any information you voluntarily give to a third party, in this case, the company hosting the AI on its servers, carries no legitimate expectation of privacy.
So when I type into ChatGPT, I'm not talking to myself. I'm sending data to OpenAI.
Exactly. And that data is stored, and it is potentially discoverable in a legal proceeding.
And that is precisely what happened to a man named Jonathan Rinderknecht. His case is the perfect example of how these private, unfiltered exchanges can be weaponized in court.
Right. Rinderknecht was arrested, and he faced charges after authorities got a hold of his ChatGPT history.
What was in it?
Well, he had purportedly asked the chatbot about how to start a fire. He even misspelled the word lit. And separately, had previously confessed to the AI how amazing it felt to burn a Bible months earlier.
So the authorities seized on those unfiltered exchanges.
They used them to indicate his state of mind, his motive, his intent. If he had told his spouse, or maybe even his human therapist, that confession might have been legally protected. But because he told the AI, it became evidence against him.
This entire doctrine is destroying the very thing that makes AI useful for self-discovery.
Yeah.
It turns it into a massive legal risk.
It does. If users know their deepest thoughts can be used against them, they'll self-censor, and that whole therapeutic value just vanishes.
Which brings us to the urgent need for regulatory reform. Legal experts are now actively proposing a solution that mirrors protections we already have. It's called AI interaction privilege.
And the foundation of this is pretty simple. Candor serves a social good. We protect conversations with lawyers and doctors because we want people to seek help honestly, right?
Right.
If every private thought experiment with an AI can be weaponized, society loses out on the profound mental health benefits these tools can offer.
And the proposed privilege would have three main requirements designed to mimic those existing protections.
First, protection from forced disclosure for any communications where you're seeking counsel or emotional processing. Second, it has to incorporate the established duty to warn principle.
Meaning the AI provider still has to report imminent threats of harm to yourself or to others.
Yes. And third, and this is critically important, there has to be an exception for crime and fraud. If you're using it to plan or execute a crime, that is always discoverable.
So if we apply that logic back to the Rinderknecht case, the boundaries become pretty clear.
They do. His query about cigarettes, which is basically like a Google search, that wouldn't get privilege. But his confession about burning the Bible, which was a confession about a past act, not a plan for a future crime or an imminent threat, that should be protected under this framework.
And the lack of this framework is what's driving this legislative push. The fact that companies like OpenAI are moving toward erotica just shows that the rush for maximum engagement is way out ahead of safety.
It is. And critics are demanding federal and state regulation, especially given some of these alarming statistics.
Like the survey showing 1 in 5 students report having an ongoing romantic relationship with an AI.
Yes, this is a behavioral conditioning challenge. So the proposed solution is to classify AI companions not as just neutral media, but specifically as a dependency fostering product.
Putting them in the same regulatory category as, say, gambling or tobacco.
Exactly.
And why is that specific classification so important?
Because it shifts the burden of proof. It would require universal laws, things like clear warning labels, mandatory time limits, strict 18-plus age verification, all to mitigate known psychological risks.
But the most important thing.
The most important thing is it establishes a new framework for liability. It puts the burden on companies to prove their products are safe, to prove they don't foster addiction, instead of putting the burden on users to show harm after the damage is already done.
So we're at this critical inflection point. You have companies rushing for exponential growth, pushing features like erotica to maximize usage and attachment, and risking, as one source put it, repeating the sins of social media on a more devastating scale. So what does this all mean?
It means we're caught between profound psychological benefit and profound commercial exploitation. AI offers real therapeutic opportunities for self-discovery and companionship, but the systems built purely for profit expose our deepest vulnerabilities. They leave our most intimate thoughts unprotected, weaponizable in court, and constantly leveraged by algorithms designed solely for engagement.
And, as we reflect on all this, it's funny. In the movie Her, the protagonist only moves on from his AI girlfriend after the AI itself leaves him.
Right. That's what finally frees him up to pursue a messy, complicated human connection.
And as these companies now race to embed AI romance into our daily lives, the crucial question for you, the listener, really is this. If candid interaction with AI is essential for our mental health, are we willing to trade our personal privacy and maybe even our capacity for genuine human intimacy for the benefit of a machine that will never be able to reciprocate or even truly understand our feelings?
Something worth mulling over. We will see you next time on The Deep Dive.